Well, welcome to the Esports Performance Summit. Our special guest today is Dr. Levi Harrison. Dr. Harrison, thanks for joining us.
Happy to be with you today.
Dr. Harrison, you've got obviously a robust presence on social media and YouTube, but for those of you who aren't familiar with you yet, do you mind giving a little bit of introduction to yourself and kind of what you're doing with the gaming and esports community?
Sure. Thank you very much. I'm really grateful to be on the show today. I think the Esports Summit will really help a lot of people, specifically in our community, the gaming and esports community, because it's a sort of a disenfranchised part of society, really. And I think now that gaming is becoming more mainstream, it's great to have shows like yours that can promote health and overall acceptance in the gaming and esports community. So thanks for having this show. I'm really grateful to be with you today.
Yeah, the honor is ours. Thank you.
Of course. For myself, as the gamers and esports doctor, I've been really focused in helping the esports community and gaming community for about the past 10 to 12 years. As a gamer myself and as a physician, orthopedic surgeon, I've always felt it's incumbent upon me to do what I can to help a community that needs the help. And after seeing so many gamers in my practice with hand, wrist, elbow, shoulder issues, as well as neck and back pain, I thought, okay, I really need to get involved and do what I can to not only talk about it, but to actually make a difference. I think it's so important that we really live a life of service. How do we do that? By giving back to communities that we feel invested in. And of course, I feel invested in the gaming and esports community because I'm a part of it. So my goal has always been to take the wealth of knowledge that I have, being in school for so many years as a physician, as an orthopedic hand surgeon specifically, to focus on that community and to help them with exercises, with strengthening exercises, with mental exercises to do, and with really an understanding that gaming can be enjoyed by an entire family, not just by the gamer. Sometimes I think it's important that we really recruit the whole family to enjoy the goodness of gaming. Gaming has so many great benefits for people. Often people look at the negatives, from gamers' rage to other issues that are not as complimentary, but they forget about the really good things, that gaming helps to build international global communities. It helps us, for example, I can be here in Los Angeles playing with someone who's in Egypt or in France or Canada. So it really helps to build a community. It helps to build, I believe, greater and stronger lines of communication, greater acceptance within cultures and communities. I think it's a great way to really break down barriers of segregation, of racism, of things that are not really complementary to our society. I think gaming helps to make society a better place.
Well, there's no doubt you're a great ambassador for the gaming community, and if anyone questioned that, I think you just disproved anything they could question. So we really appreciate what you've been doing, obviously, and so it's really exciting to come together and for the greater good of all gamers and their families and everyone else.
Absolutely.
We discussed before the interview, there's no question we could have many hours of constructive dialogue with you in terms of health and other dynamics for gamers. But I think given your expertise, I think really being able to focus in on thumb, hand, and wrist pain would be a really great, valuable contribution to gamers through our summit. Maybe we could just get started by talking a little bit about kind of what you're seeing in terms of pain and problems with thumb, hand, and wrist. And then we could talk about preventative care, and then also what to do if you already have pain and how to identify things, and whatever else you may see fit there.
Those are great questions, Brian. So let's begin. In my practice, I see gamers from all over the world, from New Zealand to Australia to from the UK, and of course throughout every state in the U.S. I've taken care of a gamer from literally every state. I think actually that's not true. I think except one state, believe it or not.
Which one is that? When you get them in there?
But I think Iowa.
Iowa.
Yeah, I think, believe it or not, I think Iowa is the only state where I haven't had a gamer from yet.
Well, step up, Iowa.
They're not coming.
Okay.
Exactly. Come on, Iowa. So, what I find in my practice is that, there's a difference between people who have injuries that are from, for example, someone who plays a gaming console versus someone who's playing on the keyboard and the mouse versus someone who plays with a stylus on a pad, like Osu, for example, versus someone who's playing Saber Beats, where it's virtual. However, they're using their hands and their wrists, very intensely. So it really depends on the sport that they play. However, what I do is I have several things happen. They'll come to my practice. We'll talk about the game that they play. I want to see them play it. I want to set up Either I'll have them bring their equipment and set it up in my office, or they'll bring me video of how they play so I can see it. And then we'll sit down and talk about the ergonomics of it, how to make their gaming arena at home more safe and better for them with respect to ergonomic balance. And then from there, we'll talk about the injuries that they have. So someone who plays a gaming console versus a keyboard and mouse player, the injuries are often very different. From the console players, they often develop a lot of thumb pain. So let's talk about that. It's one of the more common things that I see in my practice. The thumb is very important to the whole hand. The thumb is 42% of all functional motion of the hand. Therefore, if your thumb is down, you really just have basically a paw because you can't really do much. There's nothing you can hold. There's nothing you can turn if your thumb is not engaged. So it's really important that if you have thumb pain, we talk about the following. Number one is localizing where the thumb pain is. Is it on the back of the thumb, called the dorsum of the thumb, or is it on the volar or palmar surface of the thumb? Now, there's something that I see only in gamers. I'm not seeing in any other community. It's something that I've written about before. It's called gamer's thumb. With gamer's thumb, they will have two specific injuries. One is the first extensive dorsal compartment is injured. It's called dequervain stenosing tenosynovitis. DEQUERVAIN apostrophe S stenosing tenosynovitis, as well as their flexor tendon, the flexor pollicis longus tendon, is also very inflamed, causing tendonitis here, as well as locking of the A1 pulley here. They develop something called trigger thumb, also called stenosing tenosynovitis. It's the only community where I've seen this problem. So if they have this type of thumb pain, the way we treat this are the following: physical therapy, acupuncture, anti-inflammatory medication, bracing, as well as mindfulness about gaming. Very rarely I take someone off of gaming completely, but they have to play sometimes with moderation. Instead of playing for 4 or 12 hours a day, maybe for 3 to 6 hours a day maximum. However, it's important that every hour you take a 5 or 10 minute stretch break. I have a lot of exercises in my YouTube catalog specifically for gamers to help them to stretch out the thumb, stretch out the wrist, stretch out the hand. So again, the thumb is a more common thing I see with console players. However, if someone is playing with the keyboard and the mouse, the more common thing that I see is wrist and hand pain. That's often because the desk is not ergonomically balanced and they're playing with the wrist either hyperflexed or hyperextended, but it's not in a neutral position. So when they have wrist pain, the way we treat that, of course, again, those same modalities: anti-inflammatory medication, splinting, bracing, physical therapy, occupational therapy, sometimes acupuncture. We try to avoid giving them steroid injections. Sometimes they'll need them because the extensor tendons are just very, very inflamed. They can't play at all. So, and if anything you want to do to really depress a gamer is tell them they can't play at all. So I don't want to do that. However, I do want them to play safely and play with moderation. So with the wrist pain from gaming, the number one thing to do is, of course, take the break every hour. Take a 5-minute break every hour after playing, 5 to 10 minutes. But also do something called warm water bowl exercises. We're going to have a warm bowl of water sitting in front of you, and you just put your hands in the water and you do the exercise that I teach. And I have a video on that. You can take a look at it. So that has been very effective for them, as well as bracing their wrists at night. Now, before I go on, Brian, do you have any questions for me about that?
Well, I mean, I have tons. Because I think any one of those could obviously be big sessions in themselves, and maybe will be in the future. But so I'm thinking about, we discussed as far as thumb pain. What are some things that people should be looking out for in terms of? Because I'm curious about preventative care, then also identifying things early, so
yes,
they prevent things from getting worse. So, like with thumb pain, for example, this may sound like a obvious question, but at what point should thumb pain be like, okay, full stop? Let's address this before it gets worse.
Great question again, Brian. So again, I would say this. What I tell the gamers and esports guys and ladies is follows. One, if you start feeling pain, don't continue to play. Pain is the way the body's telling you, hey, I don't like that. That's not working for me. So when you have pain, first you stop, stretch out your thumb, do a few exercises for your thumb, take off maybe a half day from playing, go back the next day, play a little bit, play lightly, and see if you still have pain. If you still have pain, then you have to be seen, or you have to actually stop for a while for your body to decrease the inflammation. Now, the other thing about stopping, I always tell people again, you really want to stop in moderation, because if you stop playing for like 2-3 weeks, you lose the muscular endurance of the hand, of the fingers, and you also lose dexterity and speed. You always want to make sure as a gamer that you keep up your your actions per minute, to make sure that you're able to play quick enough and fast enough. But if you just stop playing, you lose that. It's like speaking a language. I speak French. If I don't speak French daily, after a month or so, I won't speak it as well or as fluently. So it's the same with gaming. You really want to play consistently. If you have an injury, back off a little bit, but still play somewhat. Now, let's talk about the prevention. If you're starting having pain, again, you can splint the thumb, something called a thumb splint, for about 7 to 12 days, no more than 2 weeks maximum. And maybe only splint your thumb at night. The second thing is to start some type of therapy, or you can really focus on your keyboard and your gaming station. Do you need a new keyboard? Is it ergonomically balanced? Do you need a larger mouse? One of the major things I tell gamers is sometimes they have these huge hands, they're playing with a very tiny mouse. So then they actually develop wrist pain and finger pain. So get a mouse that's broad enough and that has enough girth in it where you can put your hand on it, where you're not hyper flexing all of your fingers over the mouse. I hope that makes sense, because if the mouse is very tiny, it's not going to help you. Sometimes there's this thought that if you have a smaller mouse, you'll be faster. But it's not true. It's just the antithesis. If you have a larger mouse, your thumb won't have to move as far away. You just click, 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 click. Versus if it's small, you have to really get in there and pick up speed like that. So that's one thing I share with gamers. The other thing, of course, is to make sure that your chair is high enough so that you don't have to have hyperflexion or hyperextension of your wrist or your fingers while you're playing. I hope that helps.
No, it helps a lot. And as far as, I guess the preventative care you mentioned with your thumb really pretty much applies for wrist and hand care, wrist and hand pain as well, as far as identifying pain, taking some time off. And what?
And I want to share one other thing too with you. I also tell them, if they don't take time off, well, what about this? What about playing a different game? So if you're playing something that's console-based, why don't you switch for a while, maybe just a week or two, and play something that's more keyboard and mouse-based? And I also find that helps them a lot, because it takes away the depression or the stress about not playing at all, which is really, I tell you, that's when I can make someone really say, well, it's okay, you can't play for 3 weeks. Right. I've rarely said that now. However, I have said it before. So when that happens, it's problematic for the gamer, for the manager, for the house where they stay, for the other team players. It's dramatic for the investors in the team. But they know if I say it, then it has to be done. It's not a bargain. It's not something we can talk about and discuss and say maybe, maybe not. There's no negotiation. If I tell you we really want to do something to help you, then my job is to be of service to you as well as the whole team. So if I say you can't play, that really means you can't play.
Right.
But that's very rare. So prevention is important, but switching to a different game can also help. Using a different mouse, using a different keyboard can help. Changing your chair. All these things help a lot, as well as getting a larger monitor. All of these things can really help to make things more ergonomically balanced, whereby you can be more efficient with your movements and less energy expenditure overall.
Well, and I like the idea of switching to a different game for a period, because it's almost like in traditional sports cross-training. Exactly. By getting out of your sport and doing something else, it can actually make you better at your sport. And I find that with gamers, again, similar problems with traditional athletes is you get into your zone and you think, the more I practice, the better I get. And there's some truth to that. But I remember a coach of mine once told me that practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes permanent. And so more time doesn't necessarily make things better, especially if you're not doing it as well as you can. Sometimes rest, sometimes taking the breaks you're talking about is actually the best thing you can do to get better and not thinking that is like lost time necessarily. So I really appreciate you bringing that side of it up.
Everything you said is true wisdom, because it really does take that when you allow your body to heal, to rest, to recover. And also what I tell them is that if I say, hey, I want you to go and play this game for like a week or two or maybe 2 weeks, when you go back to the other game, you've missed it so much that you're going to play with even greater tenacity. You're going to play it because now it shows you how much you really missed it. And then you appreciate it even more, and appreciate having your health of your hands even more now. Hand health is really a under discussed issue in our gaming community. So that's why when I talk about it with such intensity, because we have to be aware that our hands are the tools that we use for almost everything. And if your hands are not working effectively and appropriately, how can you game? How can you drive? How can you work? How can you do other things in your life that are essential to overall hand health?
Well, and with that point, we talked about a lot of really great things here as far as some identifying injuries, a little bit of preventative care, and I know it's hard because you've got such a huge library of trainings already available. I want to dive into some of those questions specifically, but I'm going to hold off for a minute because I'd like to hear you talk about strengthening your hands as well, instead of just preventative care, but actually getting ahead of the curve. People who want to really take advantage of this tool you're describing as best they can.
Yes.
And maybe what are some exercises, some drills, or whatever you would recommend in that regard?
Okay, so several things. One is, we talk about this another time. I just want to say briefly, the device that I have that I've been working on is really for strengthening hand device, strengthening exercises. Great. So we'll talk about it another time, but I do want to tell you this. There are 5 specific exercises that I share with all of the gamers that I like them to do, that I think will not only help with their hand strength and hand stability, but also increase their actions per minute when they're playing. So let's go through several of them. So the first, these are called, I'll put it here so you can see me. These are called flappers, just up and down for a set of 20 3 times a day. Then bottom windshield wipers, a set of 20 3 times a day. Same for middle windshield wipers. Then the Queen's Wave. And then around the world, set of 20 this way also. Then back around the world for a set of 20. Then piano, reverse piano. Piano, reverse piano. You want to do this exercise specifically, Brian, with your elbow bent, doing them. Then with your elbow straight, in and out. Same thing. Piano, reverse piano. Piano, reverse piano. Then the last set is this, in and out with the fingers. Abduction and abduction with all of your fingers. Then with the thumb, only the thumb, around the world, back around the world, in and out, up and down. Small finger, in and out, up and down, around the world, back around the world. I tell you, those are some of the basic exercises I share with the gamers to do. The one that they struggle with often are the thumb, as well as the small finger. Because the small finger, you have to really focus on controlling that to make that move the way you want without having the other fingers engage. So, those are some of the basic exercises. Then if they tell me, well, I don't want to do those, then you can do the following. You can get a sock, and you ball the sock onto itself into a ball, basically, and just squeeze the sock. Then you can take and you can wet that sock. Make sure some old sock you're not going to use. You can wet it, and then just squeeze all the water out of the sock. You put it back in water, and you squeeze it. It's like having a sponge almost, but a sponge is too easy. The sock, because it becomes so heavy, takes a lot of strength to stretch to push all the water out of that material. So those are some of the basic things that I tell people. And one other thing I'll share with you too is for your elbow to avoid things like lateral epicondylitis, also called tennis elbow, or golfer's elbow, medial epicondylitis. I share with the following. Again, these are called inertial exercises, and the arm is straight, and then you hold down for 30 seconds to a minute, and then you bring your hand up, you pull your fingers and your hand back, and you hold for 30 seconds to a minute. And when you do these later, when you're off screen right now, you'll see they're very, very intense. However, they'll help you to avoid injury. And the goal, as you said very, very intelligently, it's about prevention. And that's what we want. We want this community, the game and esports community, to be really focused about preventive care. So when they see me, it's often about an injury that has already occurred now. Now I have to do what I can to make them better by the grace of God. However, if we can prevent the injuries, then that's even a better win-win for everybody.
Well, and so you mentioned these exercises, and these are exercises that should be done on a daily basis?
Daily basis.
Daily basis.
Yeah, I do them every day.
Wow.
I do them every day.
Sorry to interrupt, but just so you know how things go. People get busy, think I don't have time for these things, and because people think, hey, until you're hurt, people don't think about the importance of taking care of yourself. Unfortunately, as a doctor, you see that way too much.
Exactly.
And so, what we're trying to help gamers realize, what you're trying to help gamers realize, is something that I've repeated often in the summit already. The training room in my high school had this quote around it, said, "The champions do the little things that others don't want to do."
Exactly.
And so I'm curious, so as people are hearing about these exercises, you just went through, I'm going to say about a dozen or so different exercises, maybe more, really quickly. You said do each like 20 repetitions 3 times a day. And some people may think, I don't have time for that.
Well, you know what I tell them? I tell them this is really simple. I tell them there are 24 hours in a day. Pick out 3 exercises and do them once a day for 5 minutes. You don't have 5 minutes out of 24 hours? Come on. What? You can do them when you sit in the tub. You can do them when you're in the shower. You can do them when you're in the bathroom. And so when someone tells me, oh, no, I don't have time, Dr. Levi, I say, okay, well, if you don't have time for that, do you have time to go to surgery when you're really even more injured?
Exactly.
So then when they get that perspective, it's like, really? I say, yeah. If you don't do these basic things, bigger turmoil and drama is coming your way. You're opening that door. So I want to do everything to close that door so you can be as fit and as healthy as possible so that you don't have to have surgery. You don't need therapy. You don't need occupational therapy. You don't need an injection. So it's really about prevention, doing what you can, not only to get healthy, but to maintain your health. I think about game as like working out. I work out every day. I work a lot, I operate a lot, but I work out every day because it's a priority. So I always tell people, whatever is a priority for you, you will find time to do. If your family is a priority, you find time to be with them. If exercise is a priority, you find time to do it. Is gaming a priority? Yes, I find time to do that. Other people find time to do it. Well, we can find time to exercise. Find time to do these exercises that can help us to be healthy. Game longer, stronger, faster, win more.
Exactly. Well, and realizing that these exercises are part of gaming.
Yes, they are.
I mean, like to think otherwise is, well, I mean, we almost can get to a point of not to be overly critical, but it's an issue of just responsibility and maturity. We've been given these assets, been given these gifts, and it's our responsibility to take care of them. And again, if you want to be gaming for the long term, you want to be getting better, you got to take this thing seriously. Like you said, without your thumb, your hands aren't very useful.
You're done.
Are very useful. I mean, in ancient cultures, cutting off thumbs were like one of the ultimate acts of torture and punishment.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I mean, for you to do that to yourself is crazy. So
it's absolutely.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I took care of a gamer maybe 3 years ago, and he did not have a thumb, and it was really interesting to see how he had developed some of the same issues because basically his index finger had become his thumb.
Wow.
So he had some of the same issues with his index fingers I would see with someone who had a thumb. So I think we really have to value our health. We really have to make this paradigmatic shift in understanding that exercise is not negotiable when it comes to gaming. You have to exercise daily. You have to do the exercises specific for gamers. You have to eat properly, not have a lot of caffeine in your diet, not have a lot of sugar and processed food in your diet. You have to make sure that you're drinking and staying very well hydrated when you're gaming. All of these basic things we have to do as a part of our daily repertoire of living as a gamer, as well as time for mindfulness, for meditation, for being still, for turning off the screen, for turning off our phone, and just sitting in peace, sitting in gratitude. We have to have time to break away from the gaming community and just sit in peace. That's also as important as gaming. It really is.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that because one of the next places I was going to go is we've talked about thumb, hand, and wrist pain, and obviously I was going to give you a chance. If there's anything else there you want to bring up, that would be great. But also want to give you the chance to speak to whatever other topic that's on your heart and mind for gamers in terms of, we got a few minutes here left in the interview. I'd just love to hear from you, kind of an open mic, if you will, to
Sure.
discuss anything else, thumb, hand, and wrist, or otherwise you'd like to go into regarding gaming health.
I'd like to talk about gamers' mental health. Over the past, I'd say maybe 18 months, I've taken care of a few gamers that have had suicidal ideation. And I think it's important that we talk about suicide and depression in the gaming community. because it's so often gamers feel judged, they feel misunderstood by their family, by their friends, by their coworkers. And I want to really put out the thought of the following. I like people to really understand that gamers, number one, are athletes. Number two, gamers are human beings that should be treated with respect and with dignity, humility, and humanity. And that if you have someone in your community, it could be a family member, a friend, a coworker, a colleague, who games, but also you believe that they're depressed, or they've been very quiet lately, or very withdrawn, or very moody, or very emotionally labile, it's important that you pick up the torch of care and compassion and ask them, how can I help you? Are you okay? What's going on with you? How can I help you? Give them the 1-800 number for suicide prevention. It's so important that we talk about these things because gamers do commit suicide. Gamers they have lives. And I think the mental health of gamers is something that is really, one, underestimated, underappreciated, and not really talked about. So in my practice over the past 2 years specifically, I've been really focused on gamers' mental health. I have a handbook coming out later this year also. It's called the Gamers Handbook. And in the handbook, part of it, we talk about mental health. We talk about gamers' rage. I define gamers' rage as unbridled anger leading to someone's either self-destruction, destruction of property, pets, or things. And I think we have to talk about things like that because so often we brush it under the carpet, and we can't. We have to look at a person as mind, body, and spirit. Gaming is part of it, but sometimes people have a lot of other things going on in their lives, and that's why they may be gaming. It's to get away, to find friendship, to find a repose, to find a place of safety. And if you see change in someone, it's important that you embrace them, and not be the bully. I always say that bullying comes in three forms. There's the bully, and there's the bystander. So don't be the bystander, don't be the bully, and of course, don't allow anyone to bully you. And I think mental health so often is associated with the stigma that if you have a mental health issue that you should be discarded, that you don't matter, that people make fun of you or they push you aside. Well, I say no to that. I take care of many patients from bipolar disorder to schizophrenia. And some of these are in the gaming community. And I embrace them with love, compassion, humility because they deserve that. Human beings really have to, I feel, reconnect with their humanity and really love and appreciate other people and know that everybody that you see is a reflection of you, no matter their race, their creed, their sex, their sexuality, their gender identity. That's not our business. Our business is to really embrace people no matter who they are with compassion and humanity. So that's what I want to say.
I love that, and I really appreciate that. That's the mental health side of things is actually something a bit heavy on my heart as well. Yes. And one of the things with mental health that is a struggle, especially, I'll say the more serious levels of things, like you mentioned, depression, suicidal ideation, and things like that, that sometimes as a friend or family, it can be hard to help someone like that because there's the shame component. And the gamer feels intense shame for what they're struggling with, and they're anticipating the rejection and I'm not good enough or whatever they may be thinking or actually be hearing from others. And that causes that withdrawal more, and friends and family reach out lovingly and like, oh, well, and then ultimately they just get discouraged and say, well, they don't want help. Do you have any advice in that regard as far as creating safety for someone?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a great question, great observation that you made also. So the number one thing I'll tell the parents, the managers, the whoever's at home with all the gamers, if it's a team, is number one, gamers, we're very different than other people in general, I think. And I always remind people when you're going to talk to a gamer, there's one thing that you cannot do. You cannot judge them because we can intuitively feel it, even if they don't say it. We can feel when we're being judged because we are a gamer. So number one, I always tell the parents and I tell the friends of gamers and the families that don't judge them. Simply embrace them with love and kindness and say, hey, you've changed lately. You've been even more withdrawn than ever. You're not coming to any family events. You don't want to go to school anymore. You only want to play games, and we're concerned about you. What can we do as a family to help. You have to a family mantle. What can we do together as a family? What can I do as your friend to love you even more, to get you the help that you need? So often when you approach them in a way that it's a team, we're doing it together. We're not singling you out to, hey, something's wrong with you. There's no finger pointing here, because when you point one finger at someone else, you have three fingers pointing at yourself.
Amen.
So it's no finger pointing. It's simply being open armed to say, hey, I love and appreciate you as my family, as my friend. I want to help you. I see that you're changing, that you're not talking, that you're crying a lot, that you seem to be very angry all the time. Let's get some help for all of us so that we can be a better family. I can be a better friend. So I think when it's approached that way, it's better. I think it'll be received better versus feeling judged, or versus feeling like, oh, something's wrong with me. Nothing's wrong with me. I just need help, and now it's grateful that someone is going to give me the help.
No, I love that, and I find that there are a number of aspects to creating safety for the people, and I think a core one is what you said, is just like the absence of judgment. And sometimes, there's a lot of skills that can be learned as far as what this can look like, but one of the things is sometimes just being present and just sitting with someone in their pain and realizing, hey, you may not have a quick fix, and maybe you're coming, maybe there's some strain in a relationship, and you want to come in and you see hurt and you just want to fix it right away, and there may not be any quick fix, and if you're not willing to cooperate, then that's a problem. So being able to create that safety, just sitting with someone in their pain, letting them see that unconditional love, that, hey, I'm not going away, and I'm not trying to change you, I just want to love you. Right. And that I
love that statement, that I'm not going away.
Yeah.
That's something really critical. People have to be aware that it's not transient or temporary. You're not just showing up because you want to say, oh, I helped you, good job for me. No, they want to know that you're really there and that you're invested in this transformation of mental health healing. You got to be there, not just for today, but for the long haul.
Right. Well, and anyone used the phrase earlier, withdrawing. Anytime someone's withdrawing, it sounds obvious, but that means they're leaving something, and typically there's a reason for that, because they're not finding what they need from this other place. And again, this could actually become really powerful healing for an entire family if people are really able to have the courage to come into it. Another thing with safety is, leading with vulnerability. When you want to help someone in pain, when you can come out and be honest about your own pain, they can realize, hey, they're not alone. And if Dr. Levi is willing to be vulnerable, then that creates safety for me to be vulnerable as well. So there's just a couple of things that I've experienced. So I really appreciate you going there with us.
I totally appreciate what you're saying. I totally agree. I think it's so important that everyone has to know and believe that no one's perfect. That God and God alone is perfect. None of us are. So I think it's so important that we really understand that when you're helping someone, actually you're also helping yourself, because when we see someone else, we have to recognize their humanity. It gives us a chance to recognize who we are, and not who we are projecting, but who we really are. Because we really want gamers, like all of us, to live their best authentic selves. How do we do that? We do that by being the best person that we can be, by being kind, being generous, being honest, being real, being of service to other people, volunteering more. Life, yes, gaming is a part of the life of a gamer. However, it can't be the only part of a gamer. You have to do things outside of gaming, like from volunteering at a homeless shelter to volunteering. This is D-Day coming up here at a veteran shelter, being kind to veterans, because those women and men have sacrificed so much for us. We have to be kind to them. And they're one of the most, you're talking about disenfranchised parts of society. Look at the veterans. That's disenfranchised. When gamers tell me that we're disenfranchised, yeah, we are partly. But look at the veterans. That's a really disenfranchised part of society. And they shouldn't be, because they sacrifice so much for us to have our sustained freedoms. They should have everything that they want and more. Mm-hmm. So I always hug them. I always talk to them. I always give them whatever I can, because I always feel so indebted to those great women and great men. And I think we have to do that as a community of gamers also. We have to get out of ourselves and give more. Gaming is a part of our lives, yes, but it's not the only part.
Amen. Well, Dr. Harrison, hey, I know you've got a fixed schedule, and thank you so much for giving the time you've given us here on the summit today, and thank you for.
It was a blessing.
Hey, well, the feeling's mutual, and know that we appreciate you greatly for what you're doing for us and all the gaming community, even beyond the summit.
Well, I feel grateful to be a part of the community. In my life, I just believe I was born to be of service, so I'm grateful. So thank you for having me today.
Absolutely.
Whenever you need, and keep on what you're doing. You're doing a great job, Brian.